My aunt announced she's moving into my small apartment. I took out my phone. Which one? I own the whole building. Complete silence fell over the family gathering. When I was 17, my dad died in a car accident and left behind nothing but debt. My mom worked double shifts at a hospital just to keep us from losing the house. And I started working at a property management company. After school, for $8 an hour, I answered phones, filed paperwork, and learned everything I could about real estate while my cousins were buying cars with their parents' money. My Aunt Linda always made comments about how I should focus on school instead of wasting time at some dead-end job. She said I was throwing away my potential, just like my father did. That comment never left me by 19. I had saved up $12,000 and convinced my boss to let me invest in a small duplex he was selling. Everyone in my family laughed when they found out my aunt actually called my mom and said she was worried about me making reckless financial decisions. She suggested my mom take control of my bank account before I ruined my life. I renovated that duplex myself on weekends, ripped out old carpet, installed new flooring, painted every wall, and fixed plumbing issues using YouTube tutorials. 6 months later, I sold it for a $40,000 profit. Nobody in my family knew. I took that money and bought a 4-unit building in a neighborhood everyone said was too dangerous. I lived in the basement unit for 2 years while I fixed up the other 3 and rented them out by 22. I owned 3 buildings by 25. I had 7 now. At 28, I own 14 buildings across the city with a total of 94 rental units and a property management company that handles buildings for other investors. My net worth crossed $8 million last year, but my family still thinks I work as a maintenance man. I never corrected them because honestly I stopped caring what they thought years ago. I dress simple. I drive a 10-year-old truck and I never talk about money. So when my aunt announced at my grandmother's 80th birthday party that she was moving into my apartment, I almost choked on my drink. She stood up in the middle of the backyard and said she had decided to downsize from her house and that my small studio would be perfect for her. She said I should be grateful because she would help me with rent and finally teach me how to manage my finances properly. My mom looked embarrassed. My cousin smirked. My uncle nodded along like this was the most generous offer anyone had ever made. My aunt kept going, she said. She already contacted a moving company and would be there in 3 weeks, she told everyone she was doing this because family takes care of family, even when some members refuse to help themselves. She looked directly at me when she said that I sat there and let her finish when she finally stopped talking. I pulled out my phone and opened my property management app. I looked at her and asked one simple question. Which apartment? She laughed, that same condescending laugh I had heard my entire life, sweetie. You only have 1 apartment. I scrolled through my screen and said, actually, have 94 units across 14 buildings, so I need to know which one you want. I turned my phone around and showed her the property list. The backyard went dead silent. My aunt stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity. I kept scrolling. This building has 12 units, but they are all occupied. This one has 8 units, and I have a 2-bedroom opening up next month. Rent is $4,700. This one is mostly commercial, but there is a loft on the top floor if you prefer something unique. My cousin, who had spent years making jokes about my job, asked if I was being serious. I said, completely serious. I also own the building your parents rent their office space in, so technically you should probably be nicer to me. The color drained from his face. My aunt finally found her voice and asked why I never told anyone. I said I tried telling you about my first investment when I was 19, and you called my mom to suggest she take away my bank account. I tried inviting you to my first building tour, and you said you didn't want to enable my bad decisions after a while. I stopped trying. My grandmother, who had been sitting quietly the whole time, started laughing. She looked at my aunt and said, Linda, I think you might need to find somewhere else to live. My aunt grabbed her purse and walked out without saying another word. My mom came up to me later with tears in her eyes and asked why I never told her. I said I did tell you, Mom, every time I tried. You changed the subject because you were embarrassed of me. She didn't know what to say. That was 6 months ago. My aunt still hasn't spoken to me, but last week my grandmother called and asked if I could help her invest some of her savings. I told her I would teach her everything I know because unlike some people in this family, she never once made me feel like I wasn't enough.